Hey everyone, welcome to my weekend special. I hope you enjoy the show. Hit that like button and be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you never miss my show, whether it's Tuesday, Thursday, or Saturday. Now on with the show. Welcome back to Max Out, everybody. I'm Ed Mylett. Today we're going to talk about the echo of life, or the echoes in life. And what I mean by that is, you know that when you hear an echo, you've said something, but there's a delayed response until you hear it coming back at you, and then you experience the result. And that's how life works. See, today, one of the reasons so many people are confused about their lack of success is because we live in a very immediate gratification type society, meaning people expect results to happen instantaneously because we can get access to information instantaneously. We can get on social media, we can get music, we can get a movie, we can get a Google search, we can get a book, we can get anything we want instantaneously. But what you can't get instantaneously is success in life. And we've been raised in a generation now, many of us, even older guys like me, we're programmed to get things right now. And this hurts us in life because we don't realize the echoes of life. See, for me, for example, when I'm having a difficult time in my life in one area or another, all I have to really do is look back 60 to 90 days, and it's the behaviors I had 60 to 90 days ago that are causing the results I get negatively right now. And so, for example, when I'm not really, progressing in my career or in my financial situation, if I look back 60 to 90 days prior, I stopped reading the books, listening to the audios, doing the things that grow my identity, and I pay the price 60 to 90 days later. In my body, when my body isn't looking like I want it to, if I look back 60 to 90, 120 days, that's when my diet got weaker. That's when my workouts weren't quite as intense as they were previously, and I pay the price 3 to 4 months later. This is true in every area of our life. Our lives are almost like reading a newspaper today, but we're reading the headlines from 90 days ago. And so that's what confuses people. They see the external results of their life, but if you read the newspaper from 90 to 120 days ago, that's where the news was made, not today. And so in every area of your life, you got it going right now, you got to fuel the fire. If you've got your business going, your finances going, your relationship going, your faith going where you want it to, you have to continue to do the activities that got you here in the first place, because 90 days from now, you're going to read today's news. That's how it works. If today's news is you stop telling the person you're with you're loving them, if you stop dating them like you did in the beginning, you stop treating them a particular way, you're going to pay the price for it in a 90 to 120 days. If you're not eating the way you want to, when you eat a piece of cake, you don't see the fat deposit the next day. There's a delay. And so what happens is we do these negative behaviors, and because we don't see an instant pain or an instant consequence for it, we don't think the consequence is coming, but the consequences always come. There's a delayed consequence for everything we do. And so today, you're getting the external results of 90 days ago's headlines of what you were doing. And the mistake most people make is they get things going in their life, they get their business going, and they stop the very things that got them there because they believe today is the headlines. But you're going to read it in 90 to 120 days. You're going to pay the price. And so in every area, pour the flames on, pour the fuel on, do the things that got you there, but do more of it because there's an echo for today's behavior. The reverse is also true, and this is why most people give up on their dreams. Success, the echo is longer. In success, see, the negative comes 90 to 120 days, but the benefit, the gain, the increase, the result of doing the right things is often delayed by 6 months, a year, 18 months, 2 years, sometimes 5 years. And so what happens is most people make these investments, they do all of the work. It's almost like a bank account. They make the deposit, they make the deposit, they make the deposit, and then they quit before they get to make the withdrawal because they don't see the results. In success, remember this. You're making these deposits, you're doing all the right things. It's not 90 days later you get the result often. Sometimes it's not 120, sometimes it's not 6 months, sometimes it's not a year, sometimes it's 2 years, and most people can't wait to make the withdrawal because they don't see the immediate result, or they go, well, wait a minute. When I do things wrong, I pay the price in 90 days. If I eat poorly, 90 days later, my body doesn't look good. If I don't perform right in my business goes down 90 to 120 days later. If I don't read my personal development or listen to the podcast I'm supposed to, my identity shrinks 90 to 120 days. How come when I do the good things, the results don't come in 90 to 120 days? Sometimes they will, but oftentimes the delayed gratification, the delayed benefit is way off into the future. The people that win in life accept both echoes. I accept in my life. I know it's a law of the universe. I know it's a life law. that if I don't do the right things, 90 to 120 days, I'm going to pay the price. I also know the other law is if I'm doing the right things, the benefit, the body changing, the finances changing, the life changing, the relationship changing might be delayed by 6 months, not 90 days, might be a year, might be 2, might be 5 years in some areas, but I accept that there's always a payoff. Remember this, there's always an echo. There's always a consequence. If you do the wrong things, no matter how good your business is right now, listen to me. You think you got it going and you're sloughing off a little bit. You're not quite in the office as early as you used to be. You're not making quite as many contacts as you once were. You're not quite as focused as you once were because you think you got it because you're reading 3 months ago's headlines or 6 months ago's headlines. But I promise you, 90 to 120 days from now, you're going to read today's headlines. Make sure that you continue to do the right things. I've also, though, come to believe and know in my own life, because my life is evidence of it, that there's an echo for the positives too. I don't know when that one's coming back, but I know it comes back. I know for a fact that if I do the right things in my diet and my nutrition, my body and my workouts, my body eventually gives me the result. I know in my finances, if I do the right things, eventually there's an echo that comes back. I'll eventually read today's headlines of my life and celebrate them. I know in my relationships, if I invest and do the right things, the loving, the caring, the believing, the actions required, that at some point there's an echo that comes back and that relationship blossoms and flourishes. I know it in my identity. I know it in my self-confidence. If I do the right things, the echo comes back eventually. The thing to accept is it's going to come back. And if you know this, you begin to win. If you know this, you don't look at today's life and believe you've got it wired. You don't look at today's life and believe you're relegated to these results forever. You know there's a negative, which is 90 to 120 days, and you know that there's a positive, which that echo comes back longer. And the winners keep making the deposits, keep making the investments, because they know for a fact that eventually there's a withdrawal. One of my favorite parables in the Bible, and I'll probably mess this up because I do that all the time, but I mean this with the right intention, is the parable of the sower, which basically says that if you keep planting seeds, that eventually God will provide a harvest. I've begun to know that that's one of the laws of life, one of the echoes of life, is that there's a harvest, but those seeds that you're planting are those phone calls, that diet, that workout, those things you do in your relationship, the investments you make in yourself and your identity, that if you keep planting those seeds, i.e. making those deposits, those investments, that eventually God will provide a harvest in your life. But not all the seeds reap a harvest. Sometimes you're going to plant seeds that don't have great soil, or there's thorny soil and the seeds don't grow. The wind can get it, the rain can get it, the birds could take seeds, whatever can take the seeds. But eventually, if you keep planting the seeds, that there's a harvest that you will be rewarded with. And this is a life law. It's true in every area. There's also a negative harvest. The chickens do come home to roost in every area in our lives, but the negatives come home to roost much sooner than the positives do. And this is why most people are confused in their lives. They say to me, Ed, I've been doing all the right things in my nutrition and in my workout. Why isn't my body better? Or I've been working on myself for a while now. I'm reading the books, I'm listening to your podcast, and I don't see the results just yet in my life. And it's confusing because you say to yourself, I'm doing the right things in the moment, but you're still reading yesterday's headlines. And sometimes the positive headlines can be, like I said, a year, 18 months, 2 years. But I promise you, the headlines change eventually. Don't be confused by your current conditions. Remember this, your current conditions, your current life does not dictate your future. Your past does not equal your future. Your present does not equal your future. What equals your future are those deposits and those investments you're making now. There'll be an echo, there'll be a harvest. There is a consequence for every behavior in life. We need to accept this. There's negative consequences if we do the wrong things, no matter how good it looks right now. No matter how good your business, your finances, your relationship, your faith, your body looks right now. There are consequences if you slow down. There are consequences if you're not doing the right things. You are not immune to this. I've done a lot of podcasts or programs here on ego. If you begin to believe that you are immune from the echoes of life, you are immune from the positive and negative harvest, that's your ego speaking to you. Yes, Miss CEO. Yes, Miss Perfect. Yes, Mr. Successful financially right now. Yes, the guy with the high self-confidence. Even you will suffer from the echoes and the consequences of life. The good news is you control that. And if you'll do the right things on a habitual and regular basis, you're assured long-term of a positive harvest, of a positive result in your life. And so I want to remind you today that you're in control of this. If you're a person of faith like I am, you and your God praying, you planting the seeds and Him eventually blessing with the harvest. If you believe in plugging into the quantum field, and I believe in both of those things, by the way, and getting the energy from the universe that can drive you, I promise you there's a consequence and there's a reaction for every action. Just sometimes it comes in a delayed fashion. There will be an echo in your life. And my final question to you today is this. All of our actions echo into eternity. Long after we're gone, our lives also have an echo. Listen to me. Your life matters. What you do in your life matters. You were born to do something great with your life. You were put here for a reason, which is to make a difference in the world, which is to change your own family's tree, which is to do something great with your life. I promise you, you were put here for that, in little ways and in big ways. And there will be an echo for your life. The actions of your life will echo into eternity. The question is, will that echo for you be a whisper into eternity or a roar? And you get to decide based on the actions you take every day in your life, whether the life of you, whether it had a big meaning and it roars into eternity, or whether you play small and you just whisper into eternity. You get to choose that. I know you were born to have a roaring echo in this world long after you're here. The investments you make in your children and grandchildren, into other people, that's part of the roar of your life. Maybe it's not a jet or a beach house, but it's the good things you do. It's the seeds you sow of goodness and the contributions you make for others, the ripple into other people over and over again, far beyond what you can even imagine. That's your legacy, that's your life, roaring its echo into eternity. But if you shrink, if you play small, if you don't take risks, if you don't take those actions, if you don't keep improving, you don't keep growing, then your life will just whisper into eternity, and you weren't put here to be a whisper. You were put here to be a roar into eternity. I know that for you. I'm 100% convinced of what I'm telling you here today. I believe in you, I love you, and I know you've got what it takes. Just remember this. Make the deposits, make the investments, plant the seeds. There'll be a harvest. It just is going to be delayed in God's time or in delayed time. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Excited to talk to this gentleman today because his work's fascinated me for a long time. The reason his work has fascinated me for so long, I went through this string for a while where so many what I'd call high-performing, successful friends of mine would say, have you read Atomic Habits? Have you read Atomic Habits? I'm talking about athletes, business people, entertainers. And I'm like, the heck is Atomic Habits? And I finally find out there's this guy, James Clear. Turns out he's written this book, like 5 million people have bought it. And I'm like, well, why have 5 million people read this book on habits? Because you know you're supposed to have them. And then I read it. I'm like, it's not one of these like have a habit book. It's like how your brain works, how to create habits, how to eliminate bad ones, and physically why in your brain you can do these things and why it's so necessary. So I've wanted James on for a long time. We finally put it together. I'm so grateful to share him with all of you today. So James Clear, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Great to talk to you.
Yeah. And I don't want to just talk habits today. I'm going to talk about some of your productivity hacks as well.
Sure.
Your work, bro, is I think I'd call it groundbreaking because I don't think anybody's really approached habits the way that you have. But let's back up a little bit just for a second, because I think it's important for people to understand this concept you teach that, everyone's always talking about taking massive action. You take massive action towards what you want. You're like, yeah, you should do that. But your concept of getting 1% better is much more believable for most people. And so just address that for a second. Why 1% better every day? And how does a habit do that?
Sure. So first of all, I think there's no reason that you can't be really ambitious, right? Like I consider myself to be a very ambitious person. I think it's just that you're oscillating or switching between these two modes. Like when you're in planning mode, when you're in strategy mode, sure, you can be very ambitious and be very aggressive and, stretching yourself and reaching. But when it comes time to take action and execute, you have to scale it down to something that you can achieve that day. Like in one sense, the biggest unit of time you could ever do something is about a single day, because then you got to go to sleep, and then you have to wake up again and do it the next day. So unless you're playing, at some point there's a limit. You can only stay up for 48 hours or 72 hours, and then you break. So that's the largest possible unit that you could ever do a single thing in. And I think more realistically, most of the time, the truth is, you got about an hour, or maybe you got 2 hours to work on this, and then you got to go move on to something else. So we don't have big chunks of time available to us. We need to scale things down into pieces that we can actually work on and execute. So the way that I think about it is when making plans, think big. When making progress, think small. And getting 1% better each day is a way to encourage that. The story that I like to tell, and this is something that I kind of kick Atomic Habits off with, is the story of the British cycling team. And, for many years, British cycling was very mediocre. They had never won a Tour de France, which is the premier race in cycling. They had won a single gold medal over like 100-year span. And they brought this new performance coach in named Dave Brailsford. And he had this concept that he called the aggregation of marginal gains, And the way that he described it was the 1% improvement in nearly everything that we do related to cycling. So they started looking at a bunch of things you would expect a cycling team to focus on, like they put slightly lighter tires on the bike, or they designed like an ergonomic seat for the riders. They had the riders wear a little feedback sensor, little chip to see how each individual responded to training. Then they would adjust the practice schedule. But then they started doing like these little 1% changes, these small improvements that nobody else was really thinking about. Like they hired a surgeon to come in and teach the riders how to wash their hands to reduce the risk of catching a cold or getting the flu. They have this big trailer, like a semi-trailer that carries a lot of bikes in it to major events. And they painted the inside of that truck trailer white so that they could spot little bits of dirt and dust that might get in the gears and degrade the performance of the bikes. They have two different types of fabrics. They've got like indoor racing suits and outdoor racing suits. And they tested those fabrics in a wind tunnel. And they found out that the indoor fabric was lighter and more aerodynamic. So they asked all of their riders to wear that fabric. They even had all their different riders test, like a bunch of like maybe a dozen different types of pillows. And then they see which one led to the best night's sleep for each person. And then once they figured that out, they brought that on the road with them to hotels for the Tour de France and so on. And, Brailsford said something like, if we can actually do this, right, if we actually make all these 1% improvements related to cycling, then I think we can win a Tour de France within 5 years. He ended up being wrong. They won the Tour de France in 3 years, and then they repeated again the fourth year with a different rider. And then after a 1 year break, they won 3 more in a row. So after having never won for like 110 years, they win 5 of the next 6. And I like to use that story as an introduction to this idea of getting a little bit better, making these 1% improvements for a couple of reasons. The first is it shows you that excellence, a lot of the time, maybe we could even say most of the time, is not actually about radical change. It's about a commitment to accruing small improvements day in and day out. Secondly, and I think this is also crucial, it encourages you to focus on trajectory rather than position, right? There's a lot of discussion about position in life. How much money is in the bank account? What is the number on the scale? What is the current stock price? What are the quarterly earnings? There's all this measurement around our current position. But what getting 1% better each day encourages is to focus on your trajectory instead. Am I getting better? Is the arrow pointed up and to the right, or have we flatlined? Am I getting 1% better or 1% worse? Because if you're on a good trajectory, all you need is time, right? If you have good habits, time becomes your ally. You just need to let time work for you. But if you have bad habits, time becomes your enemy. And every day that clicks by, you kind of dig the hole a little bit deeper. And so it's very much at the core, it's about encouraging you to focus on trajectory rather than position.
How did you get to 37.78 times better? Like, where'd that ratio number come from?
Yeah. It's just math, right? So if you get 1% better each day for a year, so 1.01 to the 365th power, then you get 37 times better by the end of the year. If you get 1% worse, 0.99 to the 365th power, then you drive yourself almost all the way down to zero. Now, look, real life is not exactly like a mathematical equation, right? Your habits are not exactly like this formula, but I do think that it highlights an important concept, which is the difference between making a choice that's 1% better or 1% worse on any given day is relatively insignificant. Like, it's very easy to dismiss. And this is, I think, one of the things that makes it underappreciated or underestimated. What is the difference between eating a burger and fries for lunch today or eating a salad, or, going to the gym for 30 minutes or not? Well, on any given day, not a whole lot. Your body looks the same in the mirror at the end of the night. Scale hasn't really changed. It's only 2 or 5 or 10 years later that you turn around and you're like, oh, those daily choices really do add up. And I think you see this pattern again and again throughout life. Like, take knowledge, for example. The person who always reads for an extra 10 minutes each day. Well, look, reading for 10 minutes a day does not make you a genius. right? It's very easy to dismiss. But the person who always does that over 5 or 10 or 20 years, yeah, really meaningful difference in wisdom and insight. Productivity is the same way. Like the person who gets one extra task done each day. Doing one extra thing does not make you an all-star. But again, over a 10 or 20 or 30-year career, that can be a really meaningful difference in output. So this pattern shows up again and again. What starts out small and relatively easy to dismiss compounds or turns into something much more significant over time.
The biggest word, bro. I don't think most people take into account, you and I are both college baseball players, good ones, but neither one of us were, surefire first round draft pick major league players. And I think most people don't take into account in their life the compound effect. I don't think they understand it in money. I don't think they understand it in their bodies, both positive and negative. And I don't think they understand it in their identity or in habits. The compound effect in life of allowing small things to stack up over time has a multiplier effect. And one of the things that I feel like in your work, and by the way, your work is, we're a few minutes in here and I'm like, this is so good. And the reason is one, I believe most people believe they can get 1% better every day. I don't think most people believe that they can completely transform everything in one big leap. I think there's a multiplier, though. Do you agree that between doing the right things 1% or just better habitually every single day, not only are you actually making deposits of doing things correctly or better, but there's a part of your identity that starts to change over time about how you view yourself, that I am that guy who doesn't eat the hamburger and fries when he can choose to eat the other one. And you stack those choices and behaviors up over time, and you start sort of believing maybe you deserve something that you didn't deserve prior. Isn't there a factor of that, don't you think, as well?
This is a huge part of kind of my philosophy and book, this idea of what I call identity-based habits. But essentially the concept is, and this, I think this is the real reason that habits matter. The surface level reason that habits matter is they help you be more productive. They help you make more money. They help you lose weight and get fit. And look, habits can do all those things, and that's great. But I think the deeper reason that they matter is that every action you take is like a vote for the type of person you wish to become. And so when you perform these small habits, when you take these little actions, you're casting votes for a certain aspect of your story or a certain element of your identity. In a sense, every time you perform a habit, that's how you like embody that aspect of your identity. So, when you make your bed in the morning, you embody the identity of someone who's clean and organized. Or if you write one sentence, you embody the identity of someone who is a writer. And this is why it can be valuable, even to like do one push-up. It's like, no, that does not transform your body, but it does cast a vote for I'm the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. And eventually, as you build up evidence of that story, as you start to cast more votes for that identity, you have like actual proof to believe this, right? I think this is a little bit different than you'll often hear something like fake it till you make it. And I don't necessarily have anything wrong with fake it till you make it. It's asking you to believe something positive about yourself, but it's asking you to believe something positive without having evidence for it. And we have a word for beliefs that don't have evidence. We call that delusion, right? Like at some point, your brain doesn't like this mismatch between what you say you are and what you're actually doing. And so my argument is to let the behavior lead the way. To start by meditating for 1 minute or doing one push-up or writing one sentence and letting that be undeniable proof that in that moment you were a meditator or an athlete or a writer or whatever it is. And ultimately, I think this is the real value that habits provide, which is they reinforce your desired identity.
Boy, it's just so good, brother. So good. I don't know why I'm just meeting you now, because our overall belief system about change is so very, very similar. And we're going to talk about how to actually begin to establish habits. But before we do that, I want to talk about the concept of establishing one, because you said something about the one push-up. I was reading or listening to something you were talking about the guy who would go to the gym for just 5 minutes and work out and leave. And you said something about this casting the vote for who you want to be or who you're going to be. That was powerful, right? But you're saying before a habit can be, and I don't want to quote you incorrectly, but I want you to elaborate on it, because this is profound to me. I mean, it's obvious, but if you don't step back and get away from it and look at it, you just really don't realize the truth of it. Before a habit can be improved, it has to actually be established. And I think what happens is, you tell me what you think. Beginning of the year, I'm going to lose 50 pounds. I'm going to do this. I'm going to eat then I'm going to starve myself to 500 calories. So it's not a 1% improvement. Or I want to get up earlier. I'm going to get up 2 hours earlier starting tomorrow instead of get up 15 minutes earlier. right? Get up a minute earlier. So talk about that from just the concept for everyone to just, they can take control of their life right now by just the establishment of a habit, right or right?
Yeah, definitely right. So one of the concepts I talk about in the book is this, one of the strategies is this idea of what I call the 2-minute rule, where I encourage people to build a habit that takes 2 minutes or less to do. So you take whatever you're trying to do, read 30 books a year becomes read 1 page, or do yoga 4 days a week becomes take out my yoga mat. And sometimes when I mention that idea, people resist it a little bit because they're like, okay, buddy, I know the real goal isn't just to take my yoga mat out. I know I'm actually trying to do the workout. So if this is some kind of mental trick, then like, why would I fall for it? Basically. Well, I tell the story of this guy, Mitch, that you mentioned, this guy who I talk about him in Atomic Habits. He went to the gym. He's lost over 100 pounds, kept it off for more than a decade. And when he first started going to the gym, he wouldn't stay for longer than 5 minutes. He had this little rule. He had to leave after 5 minutes. So he'd get in the car, drive to the gym, get out, do half an exercise, get back in the car, drive home. And it sounds ridiculous, right? It sounds silly. You're like, obviously he's not going to get the guy the results that he wants. But if you take a step back, you realize that he was mastering the art of showing up, right? He was becoming the type of person that went to the gym 4 days a week, even if it was only for 5 minutes. And this gets us to that deeper truth about habits that you just mentioned, this idea that a habit must be established before it can be improved. It has to become the standard in your life before you can optimize it and scale it up into something more. And, I don't know why we do this. Like, we get very all or nothing about our habits. We're so focused on finding the perfect business idea or the best workout program or the ideal diet plan that we spend all our time theorizing and researching and looking for a better way. And instead, if we could just master the art of showing up, even if in the beginning it was less than what you had hoped to do, you're establishing a foothold. You're building some small progress that you can advance off of. And it reminds me of Ed Lattimore has that great quote where he says, the heaviest weight at the gym is the front door. And man, there are a lot of things in life that are like that. Like the hardest part is getting started. The hardest part is establishing the routine, even if it's a lower level baseline than what you ultimately hope to achieve. But the reality is, if you can't become the type of person who masters the art of showing up, even if it's just for 5 minutes, then it doesn't matter how good the plan is. It doesn't matter how great your theory is. And so I think the 2-minute rule pushes back on that perfectionist tendency a little bit and just encourages you to master the art of showing up.
One of the things that popped up when you were talking earlier is that low point in your life. I feel like people can talk to you until they're blue in the face, like get up, get going, do the thing that you want, do the thing that you need to do.
Yeah.
What did you find in you that actually brought you out of that, right? Because I mean, I may be wrong, but I don't think it was the people talking to you, was it?
No, it was just starting to take the steps. It was like, and this whole thing about one more is a real thing. It was just like, look, here's what I'm going to do. In spite of how I feel, I'm going to operate out of what I know I'm supposed to do, not how I feel. I'm going to finally, here's where I was. I was a very average person. Here's why I was average. How I felt is how I acted. That's how most people are. They feel great, they do great. They feel bad, they lay around. And in that moment, I'm like, I don't feel good. I've had a pattern of not feeling good. If I'm going to wait around till I feel good to take some steps, this ain't going to happen. But what if, maybe if I take these steps, then I'll feel good. And so slowly but surely, I'm like, I'm just going to make these contacts. I'm going to make these calls. I'm going to go see these people. And I just started taking steps. It's not always what you do on the days you're motivated that separates you, because everyone does well today. It's what do you do on the days you're not motivated. And so for me, it was like, I'm going to take steps towards my potential, even though I don't feel like it every day. And you go, well, that's easy to say, not hard to do. Actually, it's not that hard to do. You just have to do it. You have to actually get up, get dressed, put your clothes on, and take steps towards it. And then what I would do is I'd like little promises. So I was just a mess. Like, I had no self-confidence because I had a reputation with me of not doing stuff I said I was going to do. So I started going, how can I rig the game so I do what I say? This sounds really stupid. I'm going to tell you what I did. I'm going to take you back to when I'm 23 years old. I'm going to set my clothes out the night before for the next day. Simple thing I don't have to think about in the morning, something I can control doing. I'm going to make my bed in the morning. I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. I'm going to do some meditation and prayer when I wake up, and I'm going to go to the gym. And I actually started setting my clothes out, getting up at 6 a.m., stuff I could do. I said my prayers and my meditation, right? I did the things I said I was going to do. And all of a sudden, now when I said I'm going to make 10 calls, I'm like, I could do that. Then when I said, I'm going to make $1,000 this week, I could do that. $10,000 this week, $10,000 this day. So it started with small stuff when I didn't feel like it, and I rigged the game on stuff I could completely control.
Yeah, that's amazing, because it's a lot of people think it's, things turn on immediately for them. They see you who you are today, not the I laid my clothes out guy. They see you as the guy that you are today, which is the hard part for most people to see, because
it's not inspiring. It's the before and the after. I'll tell you one more thing. We can go a couple more minutes. I'll tell you the one thing. You don't know this story, but like I wanted to look rich when I wasn't, and so I thought no one's gonna take me seriously. This is a true story, brother. Okay, they're gonna laugh already. My family. I wanted to drive a Mercedes. I thought no one's going to take me serious in my business if I'm not driving a Benz. So there was this thing called a penny saver back in the day. It would be like a glorified Craigslist now. And I'm looking for convertible Mercedes. This is so true, dude. You don't even believe this. And you know what this is, but all of a sudden it's 60 grand, 60 grand, 60 grand. It says Mercedes 600 SL, parentheses, kinda. I'm like, tell me more. And what it was a Chrysler LeBaron.
Oh, hell yeah.
Kit car with a Mercedes body on it. So kit cars have welded other car bodies. This thing was 2 feet too long. Interior was a LeBaron. The heat blew constantly. This gets way better. I drive down to Dana Point. I meet this lady, and I say, tell me about this kit car. She's like, look, it's $5,000, and it's wonderful. Only about half the people won't know it's real. And I'm like, I'll give you $4,000. She goes, I'll take it. So she takes the $4,000 from me, and she goes, there's one catch I didn't tell you. I swear to you, brother, this is true. She goes, it's actually not welded on there. I said, what do you mean? She goes, I said, how's the kit on the car? She goes, it's Velcroed. And I go, what did you just say? Say that again, because she's already got my money. She goes, it's Velcroed on there, but most of the car stays together pretty good. I said, the machine I'm going to drive 60 miles an hour is Velcroed together. She goes, you don't have to worry when you're driving fast. She goes, but when you drive up to a stoplight, don't stop too suddenly, because the front left headlight will fly out into the intersection. And dude, I have a good social media following. If there was social back in the day, I would be the most viral MFer of all time. Because more than 100 times in my life, in this dude's life, that headlight went out in the intersection. I had to get out of that car, stop the four-way traffic, grab my headlight. You imagine people watching, what the hell is this dude doing? I would grab the Velcro's hanging out. I would go grab my headlight, run back to my car, Velcro that sucker back on, and jump back in the car. But about 30 of the times I was so rattled, I shut the door too hard and it would fall off. And people are honking, trying to make their left turn. I'm trying to put my door back on the car. Dude, I swear to God, and I drove that car for 4 years. I made $770,000 one year driving that car. I swear to you. And it got stolen the fourth year. It got stolen. And the dude that stole the car got 1 block from our house and just left the car with the keys in it because he figured out what it was. I swear to you. I got pulled over in that car by the cops because they thought it was stolen, and because it was like wrong license plates. So I went from a Velcroed Mercedes to a Global Express jet in a number of a decade or two doing the stuff that's in my book. I swear to you, that is 100. Babe, is that 100% true? Yeah, she's like, yeah, she had to drive
that
me in
might
that car.
be one of the most incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, you sent the wife out to get
the wife to go get the daggum deal. And then at the same time, man, we were so broke. I bought her a Mustang when her other car got repossessed, and the doors didn't work, so she had to go through her trunk to get to the front seat. So here's this power couple you see on Instagram. I'm driving a Velcroed car. Her car, everywhere she goes, she has to climb through the trunk and crawl into the driver's seat. Is that awesome?
Dude, that is so awesome.
That's the truth.
See, this is what we're here for, guys. This is the real Ed Mylett. This is the real story. This helps everybody understand that, look, doesn't matter where you're at right now. Go buy a Velcro Mercedes, because that's a starting point. It doesn't matter.
For someone listening to this, talk about routine. Because everyone wants to be free. Yeah. One of the challenges, they act free before they are. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like there's a certain amount of disciplines and routine and habits and rituals you got to have that could get you free at one point. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I'm gonna say honestly, man. I came to the realization one day, and again, love my biological father. Much respect for the person that raised me. But I realized at some point, when I looked at my family's history, I was like, some things I don't want. There's some things I want, but there's some things I don't want. And then I remember having to say one day to myself, like, yo, you are your father's child. Like, yo, even though he didn't raise you, even though in the beginning you guys had, you know, whatever little stuff y'all need to get through, don't lie. You are lazy at times. You know what I'm saying? Like, you are super social and you'd rather talk than work. You know what I'm saying? I just had to grow up one day and just be real with myself and just say, the only way you're gonna be successful is you gotta discipline yourself. You know, when you look at a horse, I'm talking about a thoroughbred, it still needs that, what is that thing called that they put on it? He needs that. Without, you know, you can't, you gotta control him. You know, he got a lot of juice, got a lot of energy, he can go for it, but you gotta hone that. Yeah. And so I realized, like, yo, you sleep in, you play video game, don't lie to yourself. You are powerful. But you have some vices, and you have some vices that take you down a crazy road. Like, you are your father, you are your grandfather, you are your mother, you are your grandmother. Like, it's real. And so I started saying, okay, you got to discipline yourself. And this is for me, this ain't for everybody. I started getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was like, yo, you're going to have to get up a little bit earlier because you didn't finish school. You didn't take care of your business. So you can't get up the same time another man who gets up, who handle his business. So you need to get up at 3 if you're going to catch the greats. You got to get up at 3. You got to go to bed earlier. This is why I said I never drank or smoked, because the men in my life who did it were extremists. I had an uncle who died, cirrhosis of the liver. You know, I had other uncles who drank, and my father, bless his heart, but he was strung out on drugs for about 14 years. And I was just like, yo, you can see that they don't know how to do it casually. Like, they ain't social drinkers. Like, they ain't social on substance. They taking it to a whole nother level. And so for me, it was like, you got to discipline yourself. You're not gonna die if you never know what alcohol tastes like. But if you taste it, you might have the same experience they had. So you just gotta discipline yourself. You know, I do vegan most of the time, you know what I'm saying? And I tell people all the time, I love fried chicken. I love macaroni and cheese. I love a lot of desserts. But in my family is diabetes. So it's like, yo, if you do what they do, then you're gonna get the results they got. So chicken is good, and macaroni and cheese, the way my grandma make it, is great. And yes, the pound cake is phenomenal. But if you want to be with Dee Dee for the next 30, 40 years, and you want to be able to walk, you know what I'm saying? You don't want to be on the cruise. I was just on the cruise, and a couple people, you know, was on the motor scooter, you know what I'm saying? People with the canes and the walkers. And I'm not mad at them. But I'm like, I don't want that. I want to be able to walk at 60, at 70. I want to be independent at 80 if I can be. So I'm going to have to make some sacrifices now for the long run. I would drink pop every day if I could. But
is everybody hearing this, though? Like, I mean, listen, all of us that want to win, like you already said, like, I got to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning if I'm going to catch the greats, because I started with some deficiency. Absolutely. Successful people are very self-aware. Like, they don't BS themselves, right? Like, I have laziness too. Absolutely. I love laying around. I love sleep, right? No, but before, I wouldn't have got to sleep here if I was just me. I had to get these rituals and habits and disciplines. And people think sometimes they listen to me and they're so intense, like, these dudes are freaks. I'm not a freak.
No. But you know why they say that? Because it makes it easier for them to say, I can't do it if they freaks, then I can't do it.
That's their out. You're exactly right. And I'm not going to give you that out. Neither are you. Like, I'm lazy. I got to get up early. I got to get up because if I don't get up by, like, I get up at 4:35, but if I don't get up by then, I will be in bed at 8 o'clock. I have to get up. I have to move my body. So I'm with you 100%. All right, welcome back to the show, everybody. So grateful you decided to join me again here this week. And I have some special stuff for you. I've been asked a lot, what are some of the things on peak performance when you work with, you know, elite performers? I've been blessed that over the last 30 years, I've worked with some of the top athletes in the world, CEOs, political figures, and entertainers as well. And what are some of the things that you work with them that you could teach us on the show, and also that you've learned from them through, you know, friendships and coaching them? So I'm going to just share 2 this week with you because I think they're major. And even if you think you're familiar with these 2 topics, hang in there with me this week because I'm going to reinforce it on a much deeper level and explain to you that there's levels to this game of success and, frankly, of life. So the 2 things we're going to cover this week is repetitions, doing more repetitions, okay? And number 2 seems uncorrelated, but we're actually going to talk about deadlines and having deadlines in your life. It's 2 of the biggest things that I work on with the top performers behind the scenes that I coach. And so we're going to get into this week. Before I do it, my team keeps telling me to remind you all of this, that to get on my email list, if you go to edmylett.com, and I think it says join here, just put your email in there. I have nothing to sell you. There's not going to be a funnel you're going to fall into. I just want to be able to communicate with you regularly. And we're going to start sending out a newsletter about the shows that come out before they come out. and you'll get early access. So go to edmylett.com and submit your email there, and you'll be grateful that you did. Okay, now let's get into it. So this whole success thing, the difference between winning and losing is so small, it's almost too scary to talk about. It truly is. And the reason that people don't talk about it too much is they don't really know what it is. There's a lot of people, unfortunately, that are now in the coaching business or personal development that have really never won themselves outside of telling you how to win. And so a lot of their information, when I listen to it, or the successful people that I coach listen to, are like, what are they talking about? And so I want to give you two things that I know definitively work. And this is from my own life and from the lives of the people that I work with. And in a minute, I'm going to give you a treat. This has been such a passionate topic for me and so fresh on my mind. As I was preparing for today's show yesterday, I was doing some other recording for something else and this concept came up to me, and I recorded it out in my backyard looking at the ocean. And I'm going to throw to that clip in a minute. It's about 7 minutes long, because as I was doing it in the moment, you ever have that moment, you're like, hey, I'm going to do this right now because I know later it won't be as good or as fresh. And so I recorded something for all of you yesterday that's going to be a part of today's podcast. And so if you're on YouTube, it'd be cool. You'll get a chance to see a different view. There's an ocean in the background. If you're on audio, that's okay too. It's going to be still the same information that the people on YouTube are going to get. And but here we go. So number one thing is repetitions. I think most people don't really have a concept of how many practice repetitions it takes to get great at something. And in the clip I'm going to show you in a minute, you're going to understand exactly what I'm talking about, why reps matter. And there are levels to this stuff. Let me give you an example of things that would probably blow your mind. I think you all probably know who Steph Curry is. Steph is going to be a Hall of Fame, probably top 10 NBA player of all time. Some people think he's the best player of all time, but he's certainly known as the best shooter of all time in the history of the NBA. Went to Davidson College. This is not a guy that went to a big-time school. He was not heavily recruited. And even out of college, he was small, so a lot of people wasn't sure whether or not he was going to make a great NBA player. And his dad, Del Curry, was an NBA player. And even with having that pedigree, people doubted this kid. Now he's the greatest shooter, and it's not even arguable, of all time in the history of the NBA. But why is that? Because a lot of guys in the NBA are great shooters. A lot of them have a talent for it. A lot of them practice a lot too, right? Practice and doing repetitions. You don't get to the NBA with a lot of repetitions. But even in the NBA, there are levels to this game. Listen to this. To this day, Steph Curry takes 500 practice shots a day. 500. That's 3,500 a week, 14,000 a month, 168,000 practice shots a year. And now it's almost 2.8 million practice shots in his career. Think about that just for a second. Now, wouldn't it be easy for Steph Curry to go, I already know how to shoot. I've already made a lot of shots in my life. What's the point of me doing more and more of this? It's monotonous. I'm already good at it. It's just routine. And that's what you think with your sales presentation. That's what you think with your phone calls. That's what you think about everything in your life. And too many of you have set a standard for yourself that's just as good as you already are. But Steph Curry knows that the more and more he does this reflexively, then he can operate under pressure. Then he can operate when he's fatigued. It's one thing to shoot shots. I was listening to his video of another great shooter named Ray Allen. And he said, man, I didn't just jump and shoot because in a normal game, I'm running up and down the floor. He goes, I watch a lot of guys do practice shots. They barely get their feet off the floor an inch or two. I take a full shot, jump just as high on my practice shot as I do on a game shot because I'm going to be that much higher off the ground when I shoot. So a lot of guys practice. They make their 100 practice shots, but it's not at full speed. It's not under the same amount of pressure. Steph Curry does 500 a day, and he's already the greatest. He's already made millions of shots, and he keeps doing more of it because there's levels to greatness. Just get this straight. Greatness always rises to the top. If you feel under-recognized right now, underappreciated at your job, just realize this. If you're great, they eventually find you. Success eventually finds you. If you want to be a millionaire in whatever your business is, you have to be outstanding at it. You can't be just the best person in your office or in your town. You got to be the best in the industry. And the best is not more talented. The best does more reps, repetitions. Tiger Woods was known to hit around 1,000 golf balls per day in his prime. He was obsessed with practicing. He would practice over 10 hours a day on the practice range. He would practice up to 10 hours a day. And he was already Tiger Woods. Think about this just for a second. 1,000 shots a day. He'd say 1,000 contacts a day. He was already Tiger Woods. He'd already won all these golf tournaments. He was already known as the one or two best players in the world. But there's levels to this game. That's how he dominated. See, it's one thing to win for a year or 2 years. but to dominate for a decade. Do you know that I know a lot of people that were successful in business for a year or two or three that are now broke, or that used to be wealthy and not anymore? Because when they got to a decent level, they stopped refining their game. They stopped doing the reps. Listen to me, please. Most of you that even have some momentum right now, you take for granted the game. Do you know how many reps and hours I put in to do a podcast like this? I'm going to talk about it when the video comes back to me. I've done thousands of hours on camera, thousands of hours on stage, and I still practice and practice and practice because I know there's levels to this game. Let me tell you a fascinating story. About 4 years ago, I'll just tell you, Adele bought a home where I lived, and she lived kind of across the fairway at this golf course from me. And I didn't know that she had bought the house. And I woke up one night, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm hearing all this music. It was blaring like across the fairway into my backyard. And I was really upset. I'm like, I got to sleep, right? So I go into the backyard and I listen for a few minutes, and then it was not great music. It was karaoke. And I'm like, I'm not going to listen to this for the next 2 or 3 hours. I got to sleep. And so I actually got dressed and I started to drive over to her house, not knowing that it was her house yet because she had just moved in. In fact, it was her birthday. And all of a sudden the music changed, and like a voice of an angel started singing. I mean, like of an angel. And it was Adele. And I start listening to this and I stop. I go, I'm about to get a 30-minute concert from Adele in my own backyard. It was the coolest thing ever. And I just listened to this beautiful voice, and I was so glad I didn't go over and ask him to stop. And the next morning at breakfast, I saw her there, and I said, I just got to tell you something. I was almost in your backyard. She goes, well, actually, one of the other neighbors did come over. And I said, it was so great to hear your voice. And I said, I'm just curious, like, how often do you practice? Let me tell you what she told me. I wanted to make sure I wrote this down. She said, well, I'm about to do a Vegas residency soon, and me and my team will put in over 2,400 hours of reps and practice before we have the first show. And she said, I'll probably sing the average song there. I wrote it down here. At least 100 hours each, probably. She's already Adele. She's already refining her craft because she knows under pressure when the crowd's big or she's not feeling well or she's tired, she still wants to be at her best. See, most people just have a standard of, I want to get pretty good, and then on their good day, they're good. But how are you on your bad day? How are you when you're sick? How are you when you're tired? How are you when you're stressed? How are you when you've had a fight with your spouse? How are you when it's a really big appointment or an important one? And so I don't know, Tiger Woods does it, Steph Curry does it, Adele does it. You could argue these are three of the GOATs of all time in their industry, and I could keep naming people for you if you want. But hopefully that sets the stage for repetitions. Whatever you think is enough, it's not. You got to do more. And I address more in this video. I'm going to throw it to the video in my backyard I recorded yesterday because I can't do it this well again. So here we go. Listen to this.
So this week we're going to talk about two things: repetition and deadlines. And these have been two things in my career that have become benchmarks of success that are kind of secrets. I was speaking this weekend in Dallas for a friend of mine, Kent Clothier, and in the green room there were several people in there, very complimentary that I was their best speaker they've seen in their life and nice things. And the guy said to me, he said, hey man, and I've watched you, I've come to this particular group that I spoke to, I've spoken to them about every 3 years. He brings me in and it's a different message over the 3 years, actually completely different. 6 years ago, 3 years ago, and then this year. And he said, I just feel like you're getting better and better, which is a great compliment to hear. I just, love hearing that. I don't know if it's true or not, but I love hearing it. And I said, well, one of the things, man, is I'm crazy about getting my reps in, my repetition. One of the reasons I do speak so much is it keeps me sharp and I keep getting better. You do something enough times over and over and over again. If you're smart, you're learning from each experience, you're taking notes, what worked, what didn't, what setup didn't work, what conclusion didn't, how can I tie it down different? Maybe it's the sequencing, maybe something I think is going to work on stage doesn't work at all. But I said, I only know this because I've done hundreds, if not thousands of reps on stage. And the reason that I still speak, people say to me often, like, why do you still travel so much and speak? I'm paid when I do it, but it's certainly not something that I need to be doing. I really do it, because it's not work to me and I feel like I'm making a difference when I do it and I'm having a sense of contribution. But the second reason is, and I talk oftentimes about this with a lot of my comedian friends, I don't want to lose my edge. I want to keep expanding and keep growing. And the more speaking I do, the better I get, as long as I'm taking lessons every time I do it. Well, this is true for you in your craft. You've got to do more reps. Not only because you're going to have a higher propensity of getting more accounts, more clients, more whatever, but you're going to get better. Most people aren't doing enough reps at whatever their chosen craft is. My son asks me all the time in golf, Dad, what do you think I'm not doing that I need to? More reps, more reps, more reps. And I know people will tell you often in personal development, well, more isn't always better. Well, that's probably true to some extent in some things, but overall, more is better. And it's not just better because you're putting more out there with more chances to win, but you are getting better. And anybody that you've ever seen in your life, if you watch them over 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, they get better. You got to get great. The people that get wealthy in this world, they get great at what they do. Whatever they do, they're great. And so you got to do more reps. I want to challenge you this week. More contacts, more calls, more Zooms, more whatever it is that you do. And then from each experience, deduce what worked, what didn't, and expand and improve from it. This is really important. Like, I think many of you have seen me speak on stage, for example, and you think, man, this is like, if you think I'm decent at it, my gosh, like he just walks out there and does it. Well, I don't. I've just walked out there and done it thousands of times. And when I do it, I reflect afterwards. I have some introspection. What did I enjoy about it? What didn't I enjoy? There are things that I regularly think, oh, the crowd's going to love this one, and then they don't, or it doesn't hit, or the sequence is wrong. My stand-up friends, when you watch a stand-up special on like Netflix, for example, or Amazon, my friends that put those specials on, whether it's Sebastian Maniscalco or Jeff Foxworthy or Nikki Glazer or Whitney Cummings or whatever, Nate Bargatze, whatever comedian you see, you understand they've been doing that routine for several years before they film the special. Oftentimes, it's usually about 2 years in between specials, and they start with new content. 2 years, they've told every one of those jokes with a different pause, a different nuance, a different setup to get it so dialed in. And these are the best in the world, and they won't record it for 2 years. Sometimes Rogan just went, I think, 4 years in between specials. And it's only for an hour of content. They want to get the reps in under different conditions, different circumstances, like small crowds, big crowds. And in your case, friendly clients, not so friendly clients, like over and over and over. Then you get great. Then it's almost automatic, and then you become more impactful. So more reps at whatever you do. The second thing is deadlines. I'm kind of a psycho about it, and not enough people have deadlines on when they want to get done. For example, many of you know I'm developing the houses on my island, and one of the mistakes I made is I did not give them a deadline on when they were going to be finished. So they're just getting done whenever they do. And not only is it taking longer than it needs to take, they're missing the rhythm of success. Successful people have a pace, an urgency, a speed to them that's unnoticed by the naked eye, but it's critical. And the only way that you find that pace is if everything has a deadline. So if you're going to make 10 contacts today, by what time? Not just 10 contacts. Don't lollygag the 10 throughout the day. By what time? If you've got a money goal for the month, by what date? If you've got a weight loss goal, by what date? What specific amount of weight? About everything I have has a deadline to it. This video that I'm recording right now, I had a deadline set for when it had to be recorded by for me, and it's moved me toward. You know what started to happen? I knew the deadline was coming. My mind started working on what I wanted to say. I started processing the information sooner. I knew it was coming, and so I've worked on this like 3 or 4 times over the last 3 or 4 days, as opposed to, oh, I'll just wing it, let me knock out a video. So deadlines create urgency, they create the right pace, but they also trigger your subconscious mind, particularly your unconscious mind, starts to go to work on whatever it is you're going to do when a deadline's attached to it, and it doesn't do that if there's no deadline. So let's just say, for example, I had a presentation I wanted to have completed by. If I don't set a deadline to it, it does not go into the unconscious file to start working on it. But when I go, I have to have that presentation ready by Thursday at 3 p.m. This clock starts ticking in your unconscious, and now you begin to create and pull from all the resources of your unconscious and subconscious mind to start working on that presentation, even though you may not have consciously started working on it, because there's a deadline attached. The big parts of your brain go to work on something. Isn't that powerful? A lot of data tells us this lately. By simply attaching a deadline, your subconscious and unconscious mind starts to go to work on making that thing great, even though you haven't consciously worked on it. And you rob yourself from all the benefits of memory, of cadence, of pulling those files up, of references, all the power of your spirit and your being. You rob yourself of all of that simply because there's no deadline attached, because it doesn't move the file up in your subconscious mind to go to work on it. I don't exactly understand how that works, but I know that it does. You know that it does too. You ever have to get up really early in the morning beyond your normal time? You realize how hard, isn't it more difficult to sleep those nights because your mind's like, I got to get up at 4. I got to get up at 4. It's going to work on getting up, which isn't good for your sleep because there's a deadline set on it. The deadline makes you more productive, gives you the speed and urgency that you need to get something done. So now you're in the rhythm and pace of success. But that's the other part. The invisible part is your mind's going to work on making it great, even though you consciously haven't. All right, everybody, repetitions and deadline this week.
All right, so there you have it. So listen, I wanted to play that for you because I wanted you to have some understanding. And the other thing about repetitions, and then I'm going to talk about the mind, because I use some terms there, subconscious and unconscious mind, and I want to make some distinctions for you about those two things because they are slightly different in my opinion. But one thing about reps, just like for this podcast, for example, you guys, I could mail in these podcasts when I do them. And I think my producer will tell you that, most people have a producer that writes everything for them. And I write every one of these shows. All of the content you're seeing here today did not come from a producer. It came from me. I don't have somebody write my scripts. When I have someone come on the podcast, I do have a producer do a cursory review. But I try my best every time to put 2 to 3 hours into every single podcast, sometimes 5 and 7 hours when I'm interviewing somebody. I'll watch other interviews of theirs. I'll read the book if I have the time to do it. I've been a guest on hundreds of podcasts, and it's blown me away over the years, the discrepancy in preparation level. And so I think when you see somebody do something, whether they're speaking on stage or they're great at sales or they close well, they're persuasive, or a podcast like this, you think, well, they're probably pretty natural at it. Well, yeah, there's 3 stages of progress in life. I've covered this on a podcast a long time ago, but the 3 stages are the awkward stage. Awkward is where you just knew it's something and you're terrible at it, right? You're just not any good at it because you're new at it. And when you do enough repetitions, you move from awkward to what I call mechanical. And it's kind of where you kind of know the words, you know the structure, it's pretty darn good, but it's still kind of, hit and miss. It looks a little machinist. It looks a little rehearsed. It doesn't seem, what is step 3? The natural stage. And the natural stage is it just looks like these people were born to do it. It's easy for them. They roll out of bed and it's a cakewalk. And then there's levels to natural. See, a great high school shooter looks pretty natural when you go to high school. And you go, well, that kid's the best kid. Then when you go to Division I college, that's the best kid. And then when you go to the NBA, they can all have a natural shot. And then there's Steph Curry. And I know from golf, having a son who's a professional golfer, you go to an average golf tournament, you can find the 2 or 3 kids who look a little bit awkward. Or maybe they have a mechanical golf swing. And then there's the 2 or 3 that are natural. And you go, that's a natural. Well, no, you just got more reps and more productive reps, more correct reps. And then even from there, then there's Tiger Woods. And that's a whole different level from the best of all time. And so these reps matter. I just want to challenge you to be doing more of it. By the way, it makes you more comfortable. It takes away your nervousness. You operate well under pressure. We always operate reflexively to our habits under pressure. And if you haven't practiced, what's incredible to me is that people just lose the stomach for it. And here's why. It's boring. It's monotonous. Unless you're trying to learn. When I get off stage, you guys, anytime you've seen me speak, one thing that you wouldn't see is I immediately go through, it's borderline self-loathing. I've had other speakers, even pastors and I discuss this, but like when I get off the stage, my mind immediately goes into, what could I have done better? What worked? What didn't work? What did I forget to say? How did I miss that moment? Man, I talked right over the applause, or I hesitated there. And I go into this mode where most speakers, just so you know, when they walk off stage, if you wonder what they're actually doing, they're asking the AV people, did I do okay? When they go back to the green room, did I do all right? When a singer walks off stage and they seem so confident they killed it, was I okay tonight? They immediately become insecure. My stand-up comedian friends, almost every single one of them, when they're done, bro, I messed the 3rd joke up. Can you believe it? Man, was it all right? Did they catch it? So everyone looks confident up there. And right when they get back, the great ones are in self-reflection. They're in awareness. They audit the performance. They learn from it. They get better. I'm so addicted to that I've been speaking on stage for 30 years. I've been fortunate that I've been picked the #1 speaker in the world now 3 of the last 4 years. And that's all a matter of opinion. It's nice to be acknowledged for it, but I certainly don't feel like it. If you knew how much beating of myself up I do, when every podcast is done, the first thing I say to my producer is, was that okay? And he's nodding and laughing right now, I guarantee you, right? Because it's the first thing I say. And then I'll go through for hours afterwards in my mind what I could have done better, how I should have said this. Oh my gosh, I hesitated there. You think, is it that important? Yeah, because it's my craft. It's my form of expression. I think if you started to look at your career Whether you're a custodian, a janitor, a flight attendant, an entrepreneur, a school teacher, a police officer, you play the piano, whatever it is, what if you started to look at your career like you were an NBA athlete, like you were Tiger Woods, like you were an artist like Adele, that it's your form of expression? Steph Curry's form of expression is basketball. Tiger Woods' way of expressing his genius and his greatness was in his golf. Adele's greatness and genius is through her music. Well, in my way, it's my speaking. It's my content. It's my work. Have you ever been on a flight with like an exceptional flight attendant? Like an exceptional one. They bring a joy, an effort, a professionalism, an attention to detail, a standard that's meticulous, and you notice it. I always tell them. Or a server in a restaurant. You've had hundreds of servers, haven't you? Then there's those 2 or 3 special ones. Have you ever had anybody do any work on your home? You know, a lot of people do work on your home, and then there's the one, and they just take pride in it, and they're good at it. And they've got this mix of confidence and humility. They're confident they're really good, but humility that they want to get better. That's the nuance of success. And I don't want you to miss this. You've got to be great. Don't let everybody out there tell you you're awesome as you are. Would you say that to your kids if they were bringing home D's and they could get A's? You would never say that to them. And by the way, you don't even believe it anyway, because you know you were born to do something great. I look at you, I look at my friends like, I believe in you so much, I see the best version of you, not the current one. Now, I love the current one, but I know there's another version. And I don't accept the one in front of me if there's one that could be better. I don't accept an 8 out of 10 speech for me if a 10 was my capacity. That's the point. I guarantee you those 1,000 shots that Tiger Woods hit were with focus, were with reflection, were with adjustments afterwards. That's what makes it worth it. Every shot's different that Steph Curry takes. Every note's different for Adele. Every time she's learning more about her voice and her nuances. She's also told me that sometimes when she's singing a particular song, lyrics for another one come to her. So, why is that? Well, now we're going to talk about something that I covered in the video there. What is the difference, by the way? Because it's conflated stuff, and there's even a debate that they even exist, by the way, the subconscious and unconscious mind. But is there a difference? Because Freud actually, for a long time, Freud thought they were the same thing. And then he kind of evolved his thinking. And to me, there's a little bit of a difference between the subconscious and the unconscious. We know what the conscious mind is. We all know what that is. But the subconscious, when we talk about the idea of deadlines now as we shift into that concept, what the subconscious does is it has automatic actions like breathing and heart rate. It does that for you. It regulates your daily life. It can be identified when you're introspective. It stores memories, beliefs, and experiences. It can be identified through introspection, as I've said, but it can also protect you from sensory overload. It's almost like the subconscious mind is almost like an operating system running in the background. And when you have a deadline you set on something, which was part 2, it enrolls a part of your mind that's not enrolled when there's no deadline. And that's why, like I said, when you got to get up early in the morning, or even right now, if you have something major coming up, or you have before, like you have a due date and you're pregnant, what it does is it starts to cause you to flash forward to that day and the aftermath and the preparation for it. Getting the room ready for the baby, having a stroller in place. You start to do things when there's a deadline or a due date. If you've got a big presentation coming up in the next few weeks, your mind thinks about it and starts to work on it, doesn't it? Or you got a party you're planning, or you ever have before. Your mind's working on it even when you're not. That's what the subconscious mind does. And you only enroll that part of your brain when you put a deadline on something. That's why repetitions and deadlines matter. The unconscious mind includes thoughts, memories, desires that aren't consciously known. And when you set a deadline for something, you begin to pull from thoughts that you don't have consciously, memories of previous successes or failures that serve you in the new one with the new deadline, and new dreams and desires that could be somehow correlated as a vertical or something connected to this thing you've got that a deadline's on. You can also have socially unacceptable ideas, wishes, and desires that are just there in your unconscious. Your unconscious also has traumatic memories and painful emotions. The unconscious mind has automatic responses and reflexes like breathing and digestion in it. And it's not something you can just summon on cue, but when you put a deadline to it, you can. The reason that this matters is Your brain is constantly trying to conserve energy. So when you come up with a goal or an idea or a to-do list of things you need to do, your brain immediately does not want you to put a deadline on it, because then if you put a deadline on it, it can't save energy. It's constantly trying to get you to avoid deadlines. I'll get around to it. It doesn't matter. As long as I get all 10 done today, who cares by when? It doesn't matter if I do my homework, as long as, I get it done. But when you put a deadline, your brain tries to resist it because your brain's like, now I can't hide from you. And then you flipped on your subconscious and unconscious mind, and now it's taking energy. That brain of yours is constantly trying to avoid you and to get you to avoid deadlines because it doesn't want to enroll the part of the mind that then requires energy from it. It's an energy saver. It's so lazy, it's crazy. And so that's why there's such massive power to deadlines beyond, you'll hurry up, beyond the pace that I said, the rhythm and pace of success. Beyond that, you've enrolled and enlisted a part of your brain that isn't enrolled if there's no deadline attached to it. Does that make sense to everybody? And so if that does make sense to you, here's the key benefits of some deadlines, okay? Number one, the pressure of an approaching deadline can push you to work harder and faster to achieve the goal. By the way, what's great about that is then you've knocked that out. You can be on to the next thing. I think when I said earlier that there's levels to this thing with the repetition, there's also levels to the pace. They're just levels of the pace. There is typically an impatience to most successful people. And I know patience is a virtue, and I'd even in my life like to have more of it, but I have to be really candid with you. The standard for speed with the ultra successful is different than the other people that don't win. It's invisible. You probably wouldn't know it, but when you're around them, they even seem a little pushy. Some people would call them demanding. And this is why, as a leader, if you're leading people, you got to have deadlines, and you got to focus on the reps, and you got to focus on speed. The key benefits of this is it does put some pressure on people. Pressure is good. Pressure is a privilege. Remember this. The separation is in the preparation. I don't separate myself when I get on stage. I separated myself before I ever got there. I don't separate myself doing a podcast like this. I separate myself before I ever got there. Tiger Woods didn't separate himself necessarily on the golf course. It was before he got there. Adele doesn't separate herself on stage. It's before she gets there. Steph Curry, before he takes the court. For you, it's the before. And this is the stuff that you'll never see on Instagram. It's not sexy. It's not beautiful. It's what you do when nobody's watching that matters the most, not when they are watching. If you do the right things when nobody is watching, you will shine when everybody is watching. That's the irony. Deadlines help with prioritization, getting things in sequence. Sometimes stuff needs to move in front of other things sequentially. And when you have a deadline, it puts in priority the sequence of things. It can help people identify the most important tasks. In your company, you don't have enough deadlines. I'm not talking about month long. I'm talking about hours long. Hey, 10 contacts by noon. 5 of these by then, 3 Zooms by this, right? Like deadlines. I know this isn't like glamorous, and it's not the same as when I'm talking about breathing or walking on the beach. People love those. But when it comes to the work in life, most people start to, it's this low vibration, man. I don't know if I want to know all this. But yet you want to be a millionaire, yet you want to win. Do you want me to talk to you as a friend? Do you want me to give you the real stuff? Because you can just come to my content every week and I can just make you feel good. And I do that a lot because I think life is about that. But then there's times where we have to look at each other, friend to friend here, mentor to mentee, and say, hey, let's go. Let's get this together, man. There's another level, my friend. Sister, there's another level. You can feel it. Improved planning happens when you set deadlines. Deadlines force individuals to think through steps they need to complete in a task and use their time effectively. Deadlines create accountability, both for who you are working with and for yourself. When a deadline is set, people are held accountable for meeting their commitments, and this shifts a company. When you want to shift the energy of your church, your Boy Scout troop, your Girl Scout troop, the Scouts, whatever they're called now, a business, a family, you put deadlines on things, right? Hey, we're going to take a family vacation this summer. Hey, Mom, Dad, when's it going to be planned by? Where are we going? What are the dates? It also facilitates collaboration. Deadlines can help teams stay aligned and work together towards a common goal. It also does something that I call early issue identification. By setting deadlines, potential issues, challenges, and problems get identified sooner in the process, which allows you to make adjustments that don't happen when there's no deadline. Then you get caught last minute. Oh my gosh, this happened. Oh my gosh, that. I'll give you an example. Today, Today, I was supposed to do another podcast with a guest today. They were going to be in their home. There's an issue with their roof, and they can't do it because of the noise going on. But because I have deadlines on how many shows I have to get in by when, we're okay with that. But can you imagine if there was no deadline and that podcast I needed to be released next week to 10 million people like we do every week, and there was no deadline on the other ones, then this problem comes up, we'd be in big trouble. But right now we're good because we've identified the potential problem well in advance, rescheduled it. That's because there was a deadline. And so this is because it forces the brain, as I've said, to use energy immediately. So your brain's going to resist this stuff. So you got to resist all of it. So listen to me. Last thing I'll tell you. You deserve to win. You do. And I think you're much closer than it might seem. For most of you, it's not a major overhaul in your life or your approach to your business or your life that's required. It's a simple, small, fine-tuning, like a little carburetor adjustment on an old car. See, the world would convince you you're either on it all the way or you're miles away. I don't think you're miles away. In fact, I know you're not. You wouldn't be listening to me today or watching me today if you were miles off. You're not miles off. That's the enemy trying to get you to believe that. The truth is, and I've said this many times in my book, The Power of One More, which is sitting right here. Now it's up straight. You're one decision away, or one new action, one new adjustment, one new contact, one new relationship, one new thought, one new idea, one new deadline away. You know what happens when you shoot all those reps, all those shots? When you're in a slump, you find the adjustment. You go, oh, my elbow was too far out. I got it. Because not only are you doing the reps, you're evaluating it and making adjustments as you go. You're much closer than you think. Trust me. I know it seems miles away. I know it seems like it's never going to happen for someone like you. Let me let you know something on the inside. I thought the same thing about my life. Most of the people you admire went through that same self-doubt, went through that same idea of, man, this is not me. This happens to other people. I keep doing this and it's not happening. I'm telling you that if you'll begin to do the two things we talked about today, it may be for you the one thing you need to change. And what I'm going to do every single week on this show is I'm going to keep bringing you ideas that work, strategies that work, inspiration that moves you every single week on the show. And the reason that I do it, I have to oftentimes reflect on. And the reason that I do it is I so deeply believe the world needs you. I don't believe the world is going to change because of a political movement. I believe the world changes from a grassroots revolution of good people making a difference in other people's lives in their core genius way. If that's a great flight attendant, a great astronaut, a great scientist, a great doctor, a great teacher, a great salesperson, a great mom, a great business leader, a great singer. I just believe the world's better when people are at the highest expression of themselves and expanding all the time in their life. Big believer in you, my brother or sister. Big believer in you. If today helped you, set a deadline of the next 2 minutes to share this episode with somebody. And maybe you need to listen to or watch it twice. That would be the repetitions that might serve you. Welcome back to Max Out, everybody. I'm Ed Mylett. Today's show is going to be ballistic. So I'm sitting next to the real life Dos Equis man. One of the most interesting people I have ever met in my life. This man has a resume that is too long to even start the introduction with today. And we're going to talk about that today, like life resumes. But to put it mildly, this is someone who started the company Marquis Jet. He ends up selling that to Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway. Started a water company that he sold to Coca-Cola. He's run 100 miles in one day before. He's a father of 4. He's married to one of the most successful female entrepreneurs in the country, and Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. And most importantly for me, he is one of the most giving and generous people with his time, his information, and his energy that I have ever met in my life. And I'm literally, look at this. I'm getting goosebumps because I've been really looking forward to today. So everybody, this is Jesse Itzler. Jesse, thanks for being here, man.
Oh, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Have we had good conversations off camera? Or what?
Yes.
Yeah, it's so good. I wish we were recording the whole time. So, the other thing I didn't say too is I also think you're one of the greatest speakers in the world too, from the stage as well. So any of you looking for speakers, this is a guy that you ought to be talking to. So you're going to get a flavor for that today. So let's help some people.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So we can go all the way back to the beginning. I want people to know a little bit about your background
because I think one of the things that fascinates me the most about you is your willingness to do things that you're not prepared for. I think like going into the unknown, it seems to be one of these things that about you that's very unique, but also is a trait that I see in people that win at really high levels. So talk a little bit about, we could start with any of the businesses you've had, but did your upbringing at all like prep you into being this sort of type of person you are? Like when you grew up, did you know you were going to turn out this way or no, not at all?
I always was dancing to my own drum. My parents gave me a really long leash, which was a great gift for me growing up. They let me do whatever I wanted to do within reason.
Yeah.
And I always, you know, all of us, we always come against this wall of fear, you know, this crazy wall of fear. And you can either go to the wall and turn around, or you can go through the fucking wall.
Yes.
And I always, every time I went around, turned around and went back home because I was too scared, I had crazy resentment. Or crazy guilt that I wasn't able to do it. Regret, not resentment.
Yeah.
Regret.
Yeah.
And every time I went through the wall and got to the other side, it was so addicting. And I was so proud of myself. So let me just give you a quick example. When I was growing up, I grew up in New York City, or on Long Island in the 80s when breakdancing and rap and all this stuff was happening. And I was really into breakdancing. I don't look like it, but you know, get some cardboard out here, man.
We need to do that.
Something.
Mike, get some cardboard.
Okay. And I decided that like I could make more money probably if I went to Washington, D.C., you know, because the kids in Washington, D.C. couldn't be as good as the kids in New York. We invented this whole genre. So I got my friend Myron, who's my partner. My sister just got her driver's license, and I convinced her to drive us to Washington, D.C. And the whole drive down, I was having all that self-doubt. You know, at a young age, 14, 15 years old, like, what if the kids are better? What if no one shows up? What if we get booed? What if, you know, what if we go there and I stink? And so I was almost talking myself out. I was building the wall of doubt up brick by brick in my own head. And when we got there, we went to a little bank in Georgetown, and we set up a boom box in a parking lot of a bank, and we hit play, and my friend started spinning on his head, and he passed it to me, and the crowd gathered around. And ultimately, after I did my thing, more people came. I took my hat and I passed it around, and we made about $200. I paid my sister for the gas money, and then Myron and I split $82, $41 each. And this guy, you know, he's counting up the money, and he's counting up the money, and he gets all the money, and then he sprints over to me and he gives me a bear hug, and he goes, "Jess, we're fucking rich." And what the reason why we were rich is because on that particular trip, despite all the fear, this young little kid that was so scared, I went around that wall and I realized I could be rewarded. And I was like, I want more of that. I was writing sports songs after the Knicks song with my partner. We set up a company to write theme songs for professional sports teams. And I did that for a year and a half, and we sold that company to a public company called SFX.
You did.
And it was the gentleman that owned SFX that had a timeshare on a jet that invited us as guests, and that's how we got exposed to the world of private aviation.
So you're flying on this jet. Was it the first private jet you'd been on?
Oh yeah.
So you're on a private jet and you take this flight, and rather than just enjoying the flight, you get off the flight and go, what?
No, first I walked on the plane, and it was like the scene in The Wizard of Oz when everything goes from black and white to color. And I was like, people fly like this? We want to fly like this. And we literally were like, let's start a private jet company so we can fly privately, because we definitely can't afford it. That's crazy. And we were like,
did you know anything about jets? Did you own a jet?
No.
Nothing. So you knew nothing about jets. You didn't own a jet.
But I knew that if we wanted to take 2 or 3 trips a year to go skiing with our friends, or take our college friends on a trip, or my partner had a family and he wanted to go away for Thanksgiving, we knew that if we had a need for, not for hundreds of hours, but for maybe 25 hours, there's got to be a lot of people like us. And that's really where the idea started from. It's like, how can we make flying privately a little bit more affordable, more to the masses, and how can we solve the problem? Like, how could we eliminate all the pain points of owning your own private plane, like, you know, the pilots, the scheduling, the maintenance, all that, and provide all the benefits. And that's what we created, this 25-hour jet card which ultimately was called Marquee Jet.
Okay, so let's talk about this. So here comes the note-taking time, all you entrepreneurs out there, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that have these ideas. So that's great that you had the idea, and brilliant. But idea to execution to business to profitability to selling it is a completely different idea altogether. How in the world do you end up somehow getting NetJets to
allow you to use their jets somehow to do this card, right? How the hell did that happen?
Well, first of all, we thought about what's the fastest way to get from point A to point B. Okay, that was the starting point.
Okay.
And we realized that we needed airplanes, obviously. You can't have a private jet company without airplanes.
Yeah.
And for us, there were only two games in town, or one game in town. It was NetJets, owned by Warren Buffett. They had 650 planes in the fleet.
Okay.
So we were able to get a meeting, through a couple of phone calls. And in the meeting, we got thrown out of the first meeting in like 12 minutes. They're like, the CEO was like, there's no way we're giving 2 kids access to our airplanes.
You got thrown out of the first
We got
meeting?
thrown out. They literally said, there's no way we're giving 2 kids. He said, that probably didn't break 1,000 on their SAT, which we talked about, which pissed me off. I got a 980.
You got a 980. Just so you know, in the history of interviews, so he's 9. This is so wonderful. So you end up being on the same label as Young MC. I end up being a paid for free backup dancer for a few weeks for him. People are laughing their asses off, I know right now, rolling their eyes. He gets a 980 on his SATs. I'm in the high 7s. I'm a 780 SAT. And we've both ended up becoming, very successful entrepreneurs. This should give everybody out there hope who thinks their prior resume somehow dictates their future resume. And that's not the case whatsoever. And so you get kicked out. He literally quotes your SAT score back to you.
I'm not giving you guys 28, 29 years old access to my airplanes.
Right.
And our starting point is we have to convince them. We have to have a lot of conviction. We're the business plan. They're betting on us.
Yes.
And the question we asked ourselves, I think, the starting point for any entrepreneur when you're going to give a pitch, what's in it for them?
Mm-hmm.
What's in it? What are we going to say
lesson.
to convince them that
Yep.
they want to do business with us? And for us, it was like they were catering to a much older demo. And we were 28, 29 years old. In my music business, I had access to athletes and entertainers just from the videos and just being in the scene. I lived in New York.
Okay.
I was connected to that world.
Okay.
That was my demo and age group.
Okay.
So we offered the ability to attract much younger athletes, entertainers that we said, look, if these guys are introduced to your fleet, they're going to be customers for the next 50 years. And think about the lifetime value of that customer. Give us a shot. If it doesn't work, there's no harm, no foul. And they said, you know what, we'll give you guys a shot.
So the second meeting, they say, we'll give you a shot.
Put up your own money.
Okay.
We'll give you guys a shot.
Okay, and now, this is one of my favorite stories of all time, literally of all time. So now you get a yes, which is just incredible. The idea to get in there to pitch, to get kicked out, to come back in, to get a yes. Now the issue is, though, you have no clients. So that theory sounded great. By the way, a lot of people, entrepreneurs, listen to this. They got kicked out, they got rejected the first time, they've got an idea, now they're in business, but they got no clients.
And by the way, we really didn't have a business plan because we didn't know anything about the space. And to present a business plan, they could have been like, well, we're not looking for that. We were the business plan.
Yeah.
It was like, we're gonna make this, look me in the eye, Ed, I'm telling you, we will make this happen. Give us a shot. I mean, those weren't the exact words, but that was the spirit of it.
Let's stay on that for a second, because I think this is huge, man.
People buy into people. They buy into stories and people. They don't buy into PowerPoints. PowerPoints are just words. And we had a passion and a conviction around the idea because we knew we can make it work. We knew if we had the chance that no matter what, we were going to work 21-hour days, we're going to make it work.
You and I are both involved in a business together that we'll talk about at the end, and that's exactly what we both did in this case. We bought into the people. It's like so super true. But you have this thing that I think to the extent that someone has this thing I'm going to ask you about before we get into how you end up getting your first client, which is the best story of all time. But I think all successful people on some level, and to the extent you are successful is the extent you have this thing, which is that you're willing to step into spaces you are ill prepared for. So it seems to me like you kind of think like, if I get my foot in the door, then I'll figure this stuff out, right?
Yes.
Whereas what most people do, and this is killing you, by the way, I won't step into the door until I'm completely prepared, which is a total fallacy anyways as an entrepreneur, for sure, or wanting to become a rapper or have a music career or an artist or anything great. If you're waiting for a threshold of, I need to be totally prepared, then I'll step in the door, you will be on the other side of that door the rest of your life. So talk about that. You have this sort of thing about you, you'll figure it out once you get in there.
Well, first of all, nothing happens if you don't get into the door. So you have to you have to figure out how to get in the door.
Right.
And I've always trusted the process that I'd be able to figure it out. But like the common thread throughout my journey as an entrepreneur in everything is I had no prior experience in anything that I did. And for me, that was the greatest blessing. Because for me, it meant rip up the playbook. No one taught me how to do it. So the whole industry was operating the same way. And I always say to my employees, Sarah, my wife does the same thing. You know, if no one taught you how to do your job, how would you do it? Like if you ripped up the playbook and you said, like, how would I treat my customer? How would I go after and pitch this? That's where innovation comes from. That's where innovation comes from. Everybody else in the space, they were doing the same playbook. All the brochures looked the same, and we didn't know anything. We didn't know anything. So for us, it was a greatest blessing. So I think experience is overrated. It's important, but it takes so damn long. Yes. You know, and like if we would have waited to get 3 years on the line, and this, there would have been 4 other jet companies, and we would have never have done it. So
wow, that's so true.
You got to start the process. As an entrepreneur, I think like the number one thing is start. You never have it all figured out. Yes. It's never the right time. You never have enough experience. Yeah. But if you let that slow you down until you have it's the right time and the right experience, come on, man, the world's so fast.
So you're telling me you did not know a lot about the rap game before you got in it. You didn't know a lot about the writing lyrics game before that. You didn't know a lot. Just listen to this, everybody. You didn't know a lot about the coconut water business before you got in it, the jet business before you got in it, or the NBA before you got in it.
I would say nothing.
Literally
I wouldn't
nothing.
say not a lot. I would say nothing.
It's incredible. I absolutely
and
love
look,
that.
you know, I was fortunate. You know, we were able to, as soon as we were able to afford to bring in people that knew more, we were able to scale it. And, you know, but we started everything very small. You know, we always thought really big. And once we got momentum, we were able to ramp it up super fast. The only way that I could really find, you know, I had to go where wealthy people were. And I heard about this conference called TED in Monterey, California, when they were first starting out, that was attracting all these tech guys and well-off folks, et cetera. So my partner's like, you got to go to the TED conference in Monterey, California. So I think I connected through Chicago into LA. It's a 5-hour car ride to Monterey, California. It was a 16-hour journey. And I get there, and as soon as I get there, everybody, it's like Fort Knox. I didn't have a credential to get in. No way. So you couldn't go anywhere near the conference. So I'm like, man, I just flew 16 hours. I can't go in. I'm so frustrated. But it smelled like there was a sale there somewhere. So I'm like, let me go into the little coffee shop over here and try to like figure this out. And I'm sitting in the coffee shop, and about 20 minutes into my sitting there kind of like thinking, God, how am I gonna do this? A wave of people with credentials come in, and they're ordering lattes and muffins. Okay. And I realized that they must be on coffee break from in between speakers at the tech conference. So they're all ordering lattes and muffins, latte and muffins. So the next morning, I show up at 5 o'clock, first one there, as soon as they open, and I buy every single muffin. I control all the muffin inventory in Monterey, California. I bought every muffin. And when the first wave of folks come in, you know, they're like, come up, have a latte and a muffin. Like, you can have a latte, but we're all out of muffins. And as they would walk out, I would say, excuse me, I have the muffin, my office here, we have all the muffins, and would you like a muffin? No, yeah. What do you do? Next thing you know, I'm in a conversation with someone, he's like, and he asked me what I did. And I said, well, I have a private jet company called Marquis Jet. And a guy who just sold his company called half.com to eBay. Okay. And he said, well, I'm actually interested in a private jet. Awesome. Would you mind if I sit down and talk to you about it? And I was like, absolutely. Yes. I'm like, please sit down. You can have 2 muffins. And we started talking, and here's what's interesting. And here's how I built my career. He ended up being my first customer.
Unbelievable.
But he was the key, because I serviced the hell out of him. Anything he wanted, carried his bags. If he was going to Mexico, shock and awe. Here's a book of places. Here's a reservation. Here's where you can snorkel. Like, that's not the business I'm in. Yes. I provide time on jets. No. That's what everybody else was doing. Wow. This is what we're gonna do. Here, I see your family's going. Here's a floaty thing for your 2-year-old. And they would get that. And I just serviced them. How was the trip? Can I help you? Here are your bags. And he was my source of referrals. There you go. And then the next guy came in, same system, same thing. And what was interesting about Marquis Jet, you know, it wasn't that we built this amazing company, you know, it was an amazingly successful venture. Clearly. And, but that wasn't the gold for me. The gold for me were the people that we flew. because we flew 4,000 of the who's who of entrepreneurs, CEOs, athletes, entertainers, and I was like, wow, here I am, I'm 30 years old. I was obsessed with meeting these people and learning about their daily routines. So what I would do is, I would say like every conversation was like, what time do you get up? What do you eat? How do you spend your time? How do you live rich? How do you do this? What's a vacation look like? And I would take all these habits from these winners at the highest level and start to incorporate them in my life. And the things that worked, stuck. And the things that didn't, I got rid of them. And over time, built this system. You mentioned in the beginning, like your life resume, built this system that works for me. And as I've evolved, now I have 4 kids, my system evolves, because I can't have the same system as single Jesse, 40 years old and no kids, where I have the freedom to do what I want. Now I have way more responsibilities, with my family. So the system evolves. So that was the gift.
Wow. See, for me, for someone listening to this, and I already know what they're thinking, this is literally like an inside peek to like an absolute master class of how to do these things right here, everybody. And I just want to illustrate 2 points you made, and I want to make sure that I say them correctly. The first thing is that all of the most successful entrepreneurs I know, and obviously you're at the top of that list because there's been multiple wins. The reason I want you all listening to what Jesse covers and his social media and his content is because he's not only is he a mega successful entrepreneur, and also successful as a father, successful as an athlete of sorts, successful as an author. He's also had multiple wins. In other words, it wasn't a one-hit business wonder. This is a formula that has worked for him that he's replicated into many different business ventures. And you said something brilliant. The unique thing for the ones I see is they create an experience for their customers that is completely different than everybody else. I don't care if you're a personal trainer at a gym, you own a dry cleaners, or you own a jet brand. It's the experience, because if they don't enjoy the experience, it's not mind-blowing, they're not going to refer you to anybody, and your business can't go viral. It can't multiply, correct?
I always ask myself this one question. Would I recommend myself as fill in the blank? Would I recommend myself as a dad? Would I recommend myself as a business partner? Would I recommend myself as a coach? Would I recommend myself as a boss? And if the answer is no, why? Like why wouldn't I recommend myself? And I always tell people, people call up, like my kids are going to their first job. What would be the one piece of advice? Make yourself irreplaceable. Make yourself irreplaceable. If you have that relationship with the customer, if you're so important, you're incredibly valuable.
Wow, that's brilliant.
But it's true. And I ask myself a lot of questions. And that's one thing I always ask myself. If let's say I go sideways with someone for some reason, I don't very often.
Right.
But if I do, would I recommend myself? What did I do? And very often, I'm okay with it. And if it's something that I did, then I want to get in front of it and apologize or address it internally so it doesn't happen again. You mentioned something about success. And everybody has there are multiple definitions of success. If you ask 100 people, you might get 100 answers. But you touched on something I think is important to the listeners. And to me, I have a lot of different definitions. Success isn't being good in one bucket. It's not about I made all this money, and I know, it's easy for you to say. No, success is not about being good in one bucket. It's about being good in all the buckets. All the buckets. It's about being a good dad. It's about being good to your employees. It's about giving back in the charity bucket. It's about doing the right thing when you do it. It's about standing up for something that you see is wrong. That's success. When I see people that are mega wealthy, they're just fucking wealthy. No, they're just wealthy. That's not what it looks like. And you don't have to be wealthy. If you're struggling in one area, you can still be good in all the other areas.
So true, man.
You can't spiral down because success, the way you look at it, isn't happening. Well, then go be successful in the other buckets and fill up your plate.
And then what it does too, by the way, I can feel you coming at me with that because you feel so strong about it. Your physiology changed too. But what also happens is and you talk a lot about this, but when you get wins in other areas, you get life momentum. And people I did a training on this the other day, but to me, I look at you, I go, okay, look. The thing you said about associating with these people and their habits, I didn't have a jet card company, but I joined a club where I could meet these kinds of guys. What is your schedule? What's your workout routine? How do you eat? What do you think about? How do you talk?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but habits, you get me all fired up. Everything comes around your day.
Yeah.
We're talking about all these
Yep.
successes. They
Yep.
took years.
Yes.
Years.
Yes.
I remember walking into the president of Coca-Cola about the Zico thing. He's like, it takes 8 years to build a brand in this country. Of course, there's rich quick things, and
Sure.
now it's a little faster, but it takes time. But what the foundation of that is your daily habits. It's creating winning habits, winning routines, and a winning mindset. That's the formula.
It is.
There's no way around it.
It
It
is.
doesn't happen without that.
One of the unique things for me, because I completely agree, but one of the things that's unique about you and I is we both will be creating this content for a while, and then when we looked at each other's stuff, we're like, my God, we so believe the same things. We say it a little bit differently, but we so believe the same things. One of the unbelievable things about social media or podcasts like this is that you kind of can peek into what you had at Marquee Jets doing this. If someone follows you on Instagram or follows myself, you get access nowadays to something you and I never had. You can get access daily to some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world, or fitness people, or parents, or people of faith, or whatever your area is, through digital connection now. It's not the same as live, but it's incredible the information you can tap into now.
You are my virtual mentor. No, you are. I mean, I'm in tune to what you say. It resonates deeply with me.
Thank you.
You're in it for the right reasons. Like, there's a lot of reasons why the things you say really have stickiness with me. But you're to millions of people, you're a virtual mentor, and that's exactly your point.
Yeah.
And we didn't have that growing up.
No, we
Our
didn't.
mentor was my dad and anyone in my small town.
Yeah, me too. Don't you think part of your life, Jesse, that you got some life momentum going though, right? I mean, the journey is, I think it's the most, I mean, you're a young man, and I think it's the most remarkable journey that of anybody I've talked to, because of the breadth of different areas. It's just bananas to me.